Good day. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to exhibit exceptional critical thinking skills when it comes to job interviews. And the reason why I'm shooting this video is because whenever I look back at the more successful candidates I work with, they always seem to exhibit the best possible judgment, or they had impeccable judgment, especially while delivering their interview answers. And I strongly believe it's not only because they are smart. Okay, so I'm going to structure this into three key events. First, I'm going to talk how you can improve your chance to exhibit critical thinking before answering an interview question, during your actual answer, how to improve your answers to exhibit more critical thinking, and also importantly, how can you further improve your chances to exhibit critical thinking even after delivering your interview answers, right? So before answering an interview question, okay, so by critical thinking, I simply mean some sort of objective analysis and evaluation of an interview question in order to form a judgment, to understand the question you're getting asked, okay? Basically, what I'm pitching here is that it pays off to read between the lines of the question you're getting asked and answer what they're actually looking for, right? Now, if we take some classic examples of interview questions, tell me about the time when you had to solve a complex problem at work. What was your approach? Okay, or another one. What do you think are the three biggest challenges facing our industry right now, and how could you address them? Okay, or another one. Describe a time when you had to make an important decision with limited information on time. Okay, how did you handle it? Okay, these are all classic interview questions in order to assess someone's critical thinking. Okay, so if you can answer these questions coherently, then that's a great starting point. You're already on the right track. However, if I would slightly reword these interview questions into something on lines of how do you handle ambiguity? Okay, it's an open-ended question, right? Now, if you take the first question I mentioned, tell me about time when you had to solve a complex problem at work, what was your approach? If you think about it, it could also translate into how do you handle ambiguous situations, or how do you handle ambiguity, right? Or another way I could reframe this would be, how would you approach important decisions? Okay, so it's a hypothetical question when compared to the question I presented you previously. Describe a time when you had to make an important decision with limited information or time. Okay, and how did you handle it? Okay, so my point is that reading between the lines of question you're getting asked and knowing that they're looking for critical thinking skills is already an important step to set you on track to successfully exhibit your critical thinking skills and deliver the best possible answers, right? The second thing you could do here, even before answering these questions, would be to ask clarifying questions. Okay, so for example, if I ask you, how do you handle ambiguous situations? Well, an ambiguous situation might be a bit clumsy, of a question to ask for someone who's applying for a software engineering role, right? What type of ambiguous situations? Hey, would you like me to talk about some algorithms? Would you like me to talk about something else? What's your subject matter expertise? But you could ask some clarifying questions just in order to ensure that you understand the question you're getting asked. Okay, people are in a hurry, interviewers are in a hurry, so they might, make some shortcuts when it comes to asking you those interview questions, and it's super important that in order to give the best possible judgment and exhibit critical thinking skills, to understand the question you're getting asked. Okay, if you don't believe me, that I can tell you from experience, it can take months for someone to read between the lines the question they're getting asked. Okay. Second thing, during the actual interview, during the actual answer, what are some tips when it comes to exhibiting great critical thinking and great judgment in your answers? Okay, I'm going to focus on 5 tips here. The first tip would be to use frameworks. Okay, whenever you're using a framework in your answer will sound more credible. Okay, now what are some frameworks? Well, very much depends on the roles. It could be the Kano customer satisfaction model, it could be the Moscow technique, it could be the quicksort algorithm for developers, or it could be the generally accepted accounting principles for accountants. But whatever frameworks make the most sense for the role that you're applying for, if you manage to mention them and to mention how you use those frameworks efficiently in the role, for example, dealing with the prioritization, with quicksort algorithm, your answer will sound significantly more credible, and you will exhibit critical thinking and sound judgment in the way, clarity of thought as well, right? The second thing you could do here, during your answers would be to tailor the answer for your interviewer's role. Okay, I cannot emphasize this enough. For most people, the way you'd answer a question with a recruiter is not the way you'd answer it with someone who's a subject matter expert, right? If you're interviewing with a recruiter and they're asking you a slightly technical question, you go above and beyond to ensure that they understand what you're saying in the first place. Whereas compared to you're interviewing with another developer, you could go as technical as possible and you could focus on completely different stuff in your answers, right? This is what would sell yourself as the better candidate, right? So tailor your answers for your interviewer. Then the third thing would be to be specific. Okay, being specific is not as easy as it seems in these answers. And if I may tell you something from my experience of having access to thousands of your stories and having coached many of you, I can tell you that there are very few roles in these companies which value a philosophical approach to handling ambiguity, for instance, right? So how do you handle ambiguous situations? They are not looking for a philosophical answer. On your end, they are looking at specific examples when you dealt with ambiguity efficiently. Even 3 examples if you have, right? And if you can give them efficiently, right? And by the way, the previous advice I give you with frameworks still applies, but the more specific, the better, right? The fourth tip would be here to help you with exhibiting better critical thinking in your answers and to structure them better would be to use some frameworks, such as the STAR format. For most candidates, their answers will benefit from the STAR format. Of course, you could further improve it with adding some learnings, with dramatizing it, with making an introductory statement and whatnot. But structuring your answers as a general idea can help exhibiting, improving critical thinking. I mean, improving the way you tell your answers in a way that you exhibit critical thinking. And the number 5 tip here, last but certainly not least, and please take this seriously, please be intelligible. Okay, so especially for more technical types of roles, even for manager level roles, you'll be surprised how many candidates present their stories in a way they only them understand it. It's very common for me to work with people whom I cannot understand, and it's not because they cannot speak English. It's simply because they talk a jargon they would expect me as a non-technical person to understand, right? So ensure that you are intelligible in whatever you say. It happens more often than you think, right? And the third thing I wanted to emphasize here, in order to, so to speak, to seal the deal on critical thinking and to even impress slightly with your critical, to exhibit someone as a critical thinker would be after you deliver your answer, to ask follow-ups. Okay, so is this what you're looking for? Would you like me to develop more on anything I talked about in my answer? So if you follow up with them, you basically seal the deal. Yes, you really want to ensure that they understand, and you really want to sell yourself as the best possible candidate. Very few candidates can do this, and you should, of course, not overdo it. But if you feel it's appropriate to ask them follow-ups, then please consider doing so, right? And maybe a quick closing tip here. I've seen candidates who even send follow-up questions in their thank you notes after their job interviews, or even in the questions for them section, if you feel like, hey, there could be value in adding further clarifications and further improving your chances to exhibit, as to sell yourself as someone with sound judgment, right? So again, everything I said in this video with those 3 steps, even before the question gets asked, during your answers and after your answers, the main goal would be to sell yourself as someone with sound judgment and critical thinking for the purpose of a job interview. Again, on the reason that the best people I work with always seem to exhibit these traits. So I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.